Welcome back to this Transitioning Humanitarians Live. And Vicky's back. Hi, Vicky.
Hi, Asel. Hello, everyone. Great to be back.
Yes, great to have you back. And we have a very exciting topic to talk to you today. The topic that I think many of us have somewhere hidden that we don't really maybe talk about, the topic of pain and suffering. Be it physical or emotional. I will be more focusing on the emotional side of things, and Vicky will be covering all the things. This is how we've divided up. So, the reason why we wanted to talk about it is really why is it that we take so long before making any decisions or measures to transition, right? So oftentimes we do that when things are critical, when things are not the way that we're wanting. We have been suffering for some time, and then we then decide to do something about it. I mean, I have done it myself as well. Unfortunately, that I was in hospital when I decided to resign at some point. So I can see many of us doing this and then not really finding maybe answers or ways how to get out of it or what to do. So this is, we're hoping that we will be addressing this topic. So the first question that I thought we could address is the question of why we do this, why we tolerate this suffering, the pain, right? Why we take actions late in
Mm.
so many cases. So, what would you say, Vicky, when you think of your clients as to why we make these decisions very late?
That's a very good question, and I don't and I was thinking about it, and I don't really have a fantastic answer for this, and maybe nobody has. I don't know, but thinking about all the situations where people experience maybe burnout, or people wait too long until they have the physical aspects showing. I was thinking about it, and I wonder if it's really just the power of the habit that we have, and that we stick to the same routines that we have, that somehow maybe the routines are not good, the habits are not good, that eventually lead into our ill health, or into a disease. So that was one of the reasons. And the second reason I was thinking about it, and I wonder, and I'm also thinking about my own experience, is that I still somehow, in spite of all the signs that were showing up, I still hope that I could reverse the situation. I still hope, and I think this may be for many people, they still hope that they can reverse the where the things are going. You're noticing that maybe your health, whether emotional or physical, is deteriorating. You're noticing that you are maybe your concentration is not so good, or maybe you physically feel pain, etc., etc. But you still hope that maybe with some small changes, you can reverse that. So that would be one of my observations, is that I still hope I can do this. I still, maybe if I stop working 1 hour before, but I think very often it might be, I don't want to say too late, but it's already too long of a time, and too many factors that have contributed for us to be really ill. What about you? What is your experience, Asel, with this?
Yeah, so I was thinking also looking at my own experience of being hospitalized. I think the major reason definitely is because I felt like I couldn't do anything about it, right? I had
Yeah,
no
okay.
choice. I think this was like, because of course this was
Mhm.
like love of my life to work for the
Mhm.
organization,
Yeah,
and it was going well in some parts of my journey. So then quitting or resigning sounded like avoiding or not wanting
yeah,
to tolerate or endure, right? Like in my culture, a lot of people say that as long as you keep enduring all of these difficulties, at some point you arrive at
yeah,
a glorious part, right? And I
yeah,
think that that cultural aspect maybe also influenced me so much to just say that okay, suffering is part of the journey, it's okay, normal, and I just
yeah.
have to go through it. Maybe this was like the major thing. And the other major thing is also, I think, even though maybe I was suffering at the time, I didn't really know, like, what else would I be doing if I, even if I left, right? Because this is the job that I love, like working with the people, refugees and stateless at the time, that I wouldn't be able to do that in other contexts. I had this idea, right? So I didn't know how else, what else I would be doing. So I think it's also very common that we tell ourselves that we don't really have any choice. We don't really believe that we can do anything else. We may also believe that it's too late for some of us, right?
Mhm.
Because we've been in the system for so long, or
Yeah.
maybe for others, we believe that this is the only way that we can secure certain insurance, for
Yeah.
instance, or certain stability, which is totally like understandable and human thing to do that many of us do. What I would love, however, to make this caveat that I think many of us are now talking more and more about is that what are the things that we shouldn't be tolerating, right? Because I can
Mhm.
understand that we want to overcome certain challenges, certain difficulties, and it's part of our lives. But there are also certain challenges that I think we shouldn't be finding okay. We shouldn't normalize it or say that this is just how it is. Well, one of them, I think that we're talking more and more, is the abusive relationships, right? That's,
Mhm.
I think, I mean, you define it for yourself how you see that, but I find that was probably one of the things that I didn't do much about in my own time. And I have learned,
Mhm.
of course, so much from it. But I would love to encourage us all to think about, okay, what is, when the relationship becomes abusive, that I shouldn't tolerate, not that I can't, I shouldn't tolerate, right? There are maybe other like indicators that you define for
Mhm.
yourself as these are the things that I don't need to suffer through or tolerate because it's against my own rules or against my own
Yeah.
principles, whatever the way you define it. So I would love to encourage all of us to think in those terms as well, is that
Mhm.
just because we believe that we should be tolerating or we should be going through this suffering, there is a
Mhm.
limit to what we can and cannot do, or what we should and should not do. So that's why this is the one thing that I want to highlight. And the other thing that I would love to talk to you, Vicky, about, I think what we often then do is that once we are in that suffering, in that pain, we often also don't take up the support that we have, or we
Mhm.
don't believe in the support that's available, right?
Yeah.
I love your, I would love for you to talk about this. The examination part that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So whenever we're going through this, um, why are we then not really like grabbing all the support that we're needing? Maybe is the question.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think thank you for the question, Asel, and I really do think that actually there's several layers of it, and I believe that the first layer is really our own awareness, and from my own observation, again, I don't necessarily have data for it, but from my observation over the years, I see that a lot of us really don't realize the severity of our condition. And in particular, if maybe we do not necessarily have yet the physical demonstration of a disease or an illness. Then in particular, if we are talking about maybe any mental issue or a burnout or a similar or any psychological concerns, I think, or maybe PTSD, etc., that of course we know that humanitarian workers are very much exposed to. It is, I do believe that we don't realize the severity of it when we are maybe undergoing the medical exam, because as we know, the medical exam that we all have to undergo on a regular basis, or maybe to start a new assignment, is mostly of physical nature. Of course, that there are parts where the examining practitioner, of course, asks the questions, but it's really the symptoms, as they are not necessarily, or from this aspect, this is not very often visible. It is up to us to really address the question or address the concern. And I think here it's really maybe also our way of thinking is that, oh, I still want to do another assignment, I still want to go, so I will not say anything, because once I'm there, I'll figure it out. I'll be in my favorite environment and preferred environment. But of course, these things usually in assignments don't go any better, and we are exposed to so much higher levels of stress. And I've actually read about a year ago, there is a one researcher that is particularly researching aid workers and the mental health or health overall of aid professionals. And what is now, we have data for it, is that the aid practitioners or aid or humanitarians have almost triple the rates of burnout than compared to other categories. So clearly there are things that are happening to aid professionals that aid professionals obviously suffer much more. I think another aspect why we actually don't go into the so I would say on one side, as I mentioned, I would say a little bit of a self-denial or not wanting to go into this, still wanting to be, no, I still can do it. I'm an aid professional. I can do that. And the other one is a little bit, and you mentioned it from your example, is in a sense that, we are in the environments where we need to be the strong ones, where we need to be the ones that are of assistance or serving the others. So I cannot be seen as myself needing assistance, or I don't want to be seen. And I think here is a bit of a identity issue where we don't want to be seen as receiving assistance. We want to be seen as the strong ones. We don't want to be a burden. We came here to serve. We don't want to be a burden. This is not me. This is not me, the aid worker. So I think here is a bit of a lot of internal struggles. And that's why I think maybe aid workers have such particular difficulties to admit and to go to the area of okay, now I'm really not well, and now I really need help. And I think in many cases we could have realized this, or we could have admitted this to ourselves a little earlier, and then the treatment or the care could have been maybe easier. So this is a little bit what I'm seeing. And bringing it back to transitioning, I would say sometimes we see this as one process, the transitioning and health. Like, I am transitioning because I'm not well. But very often there we have two processes. This is my transitioning, and it doesn't have to be aligned with my health. I can actually, get treated or be in treatment or actually never needing anything, and transitioning is the other. So I would say, from my perspective, I think I would also invite to separate these two subjects. I don't
Yeah.
know what you think about.
I was also thinking that definitely. So, whenever I think we're going to the what to do part, so it's great that I can talk about this from this perspective of, so if we're suffering, especially I'm thinking of like emotional suffering, right? That we believe that we just need to go through it. This is how it is. Life isn't fair, or whatever the thing that we tell ourselves, and then we continue doing it. In those moments, I would love to suggest the first thing to do is remove unnecessary suffering. And by unnecessary suffering, I mean the judgments, the shame, the resistance around it. Because the way that we often do is then, I should be stronger, I should be this, I should be that, like Vicky was saying, right? That we see ourselves oftentimes in the role of the rescuer, or in the role of the person who always has everything together, who's always like upbeat and very active and forthgoing, which are very admiring characters we all know. However, also noticing that in those moments, if we just keep powering through and forcing ourselves through these situations, we know that it can't last long. I think we know it like intellectually, but until the symptoms arrive, we don't really pay much attention to that, right? So that's why I would love to invite people to not do that forcing through and powering through and then just continuing as if nothing happened type of situations, even if everyone admires those characters. because it's
Yeah.
important that you take care of yourself, um, and you do the things that's necessary for your health, no matter what's happening outside in the world, right?
Yeah.
Because in the end, we know that with the consequences of that health, we are the one who will be dealing with it, not all those people who are admiring us. So that's why I really, really want people to think about, okay, I can do the powering through and doing all the things, but at the same time, I need to be doing that only from the place of like being healthy and
Yeah.
having slept enough and having rested enough and all of this place, and not out of this like empty tank is the analogy comes to my
Mm.
mind, where we just continue pushing and pushing, right?
Yeah.
So that's why this would be the first thing to do. And that's also, I would say, like transition in your mindset in that way of saying that yes, I want to be that person who does all the things, but I also want to be the person who takes care of myself in the process, because I am here for the long run, right? I'm here for the long committed work that I want to do. And if I do that, I also need to take care of myself in the process. So that would be like the transitioning in your mindset, I would say, how you could do that.
Mhm.
And the second thing that I would say is that always bring the choice to whatever the situation you have. And this is, I think, my lesson learned from life is that wherever my life takes me, I always have a choice to do something about it, even if in that moment I feel like it's like there is no choice,
Yeah.
this is how it is, life sucks, or whatever the thing that we're telling ourselves, which I have done so many of them. But then as soon as we bring the choice of, no, I'm choosing to be here, I'm choosing to do this work, I'm choosing to stay, right? I'm choosing to be in this environment, or I'm choosing to do this career, I'm
Yeah.
choosing to earn this money, or I'm choosing to have my health insurance so that I can take care of myself. These are very valid points for us to then say, okay, I know the reason why I'm doing it, so that I don't
Yeah.
become in this role of powerless person who can't really do anything else but have to stay kind of a situation. Right. And the third one that I would love for people to be then transitioning to, which I understand is very difficult at first, especially when I say it theoretically, but essentially the idea that I'm thinking of is, if we're suffering, we may as well suffer for growing purposes.
Hmm.
And the way that I think of it is that, okay, if I'm going through these tough times, I may as well build up my skills, my resilience, my whatever problem solving skill, my
Hmm.
enduring skill, whatever the skill that I'm building. So let's approach the problem or the challenge from that perspective, rather than from, oh my God, again, this problem is happening and I just can't deal with
Hmm.
it, kind of like
Yeah.
very depleting place, right? And I know that oftentimes we get into that depleting place, I think only because we believe that we don't want to handle this, we can't handle it, it's too much. And whenever we don't really believe our abilities that we can handle it well, then we will always be in this depleting position. And then after finishing that problem, we're very exhausted. And that's going to be like
Yeah.
a very difficult place to be. So that's why I was thinking, like, like sports people approach their work, right? They always approach it from the place of, this is going to be a competition or game or whatever the way they see it. And then this is how we train. These are the challenges that will come. And these are the ways that we deal
Yeah.
with it, right? And of course, they obviously have different ways of looking at things, in the sense of they're not maybe in this life-saving situation. I can
Hmm.
understand that, but still I find some of the approaches very useful, so that we get energized at the end of solving the problem, rather
Yeah.
than we get depleted at the end of solving the problem, right? So that's
Yeah.
why I was thinking that if we're going to suffer, we may as well suffer in the way that serves us,
Yeah.
rather than we like destroy our health or
Yeah.
our nervous
Yeah.
systems.
Yeah. And you know, there is very important what you're saying, because I do believe that, and I do believe, and again, there are studies as well to support it, that every negative situation that we go through is an opportunity to learn, to grow, as you say, through learning. So it is really very important to really take the learning, take the extra, I don't know, 1 minute, 2 minutes, to think about what is it that I have learned from this. And it's true, it would not always be available. The answer might not be available in the toughest of the moments. Sometimes we might need to wait a day or two or a week, or even sometimes maybe a half a year, if the event has been so difficult and so traumatic and so maybe so heavy for us emotionally or physically. But do take time to learn, and I think most of the people do that. But I think to really make a conscious effort to do the learning process, and so as to establish, okay, so what is it that I'm going to do differently next time? And that's really really a crucial thing, because it concerns our mindset, but it concerns also concrete actions. So we know what is it that this is what I'm going to avoid, this is what I'm going to do more proactively, etc. So yeah, so I think this is a very important advice and recommendation. I would also encourage colleagues to maybe look at the place, the workplace they are in, because of course there might be situations where we are talking about sort of individual but also organizational issues, where sometimes the organizational issues are impossible to change by an individual. I mean, they have to be changed collectively. But I think the question that one might ask herself, himself, or themselves is, what is this job bringing me? And when we are thinking about whether to continue or not in this place that has caused us so much suffering, and so I think when we ask this question, it's not only to mention positive things, like it's bringing me, I don't know, salary, it's bringing me a stable desk, it's bringing me a reputation, it's bringing me something interesting, but also what is this job bringing me in terms of everything, like all the negative things. It's bringing me additional stress, it's bringing me conflicts, it's bringing me high blood pressure. So all those things really, and then of course not use simple plus and minus, but really look at the whole picture that this is giving you, to try to understand whether this is a place for you to stay, or it's really a place that you need to leave, and whether this means leaving the position itself, leaving the organization itself, if this is true about the whole organization, or maybe it's also the sector itself. So I think there are three levels that you might want to explore.
Exactly, amazing. And the one thing maybe to make it very specific in terms of like using this more ways for us to train our muscles, whatever the growth muscles that we're training, right? The commitment, for instance, comes to my mind, or believing in the cause, or believing in what we're wanting, or believing in that project that we're doing
Yeah.
it well. So, whenever we're doing it, I think oftentimes that we derail is in the moment where we start resisting it, saying that this shouldn't be this way, I
Okay.
shouldn't be doing it this way, or whatever the things, right? And whenever we're in that resistance, then we don't really have like control over it, over the situation, because we're so much in the how we want to get rid of it, or how we want to like do it as soon as possible and then have it behind us, or some kind of like energy, and therefore we get very exhausted by doing it. So in other ways, the way that I always think of it is like trying to do something while hating is
Mhm.
going to be like the
Yeah.
double stress, right? So, A, we're hating our way of doing it or what we're doing, and then we're hating the task or everything we're
Mhm.
doing, and then we're just layering it up and making it
Mhm.
so heavy. Then we
Yeah.
have really like no control over how we're going to do it, and we don't really tend to grow much in that scenario except that just getting it
Yes.
over with. So that's why whenever you're having that task or the challenge, whatever the thing that's causing you suffering, that you think is causing you suffering, so important that you have always the choice to do that work. And if you are going to do that, you may as well do it in the way that makes least problems for you, or least additional difficulties, right? And therefore you can just, like the way I'm thinking of it, imagine you have a project in front of you, and then you ask yourself, okay, what is the easiest way to do this? What is the way to do it where I learn from it, or what is the way to do it in the way that I do it my way, whatever
Yeah.
the way it is, right? So how can I make it as painless as possible,
Yeah.
so that it doesn't become like this thing that we're
Mhm.
pushing, we're like,
Yeah.
or dragging, whichever the way that you imagine, right? So this
Mhm.
is like there's so many different ways to look at it, but I think the key question always is, how do I make it not a problem, I guess? How do I
Mhm.
make it not another source of suffering?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once we realize that we have a choice to do this in the way that does not cause us any suffering, then we have like control over it. We feel like we can do something about it. We may not be able to do much about the system or so many things, but when it comes to our daily tasks, there are still certain things that we can do our own way, and at least have that authority, or the
Mhm.
control exercising over that.
Yeah. Yeah. Very important.
Anything, Vicky, that we didn't mention?
I think we mentioned quite a bit. My last note on this subject would be that if you're noticing that you are in pain, whether emotional or physical, and I think it's important to monitor this, whether, because I think this is how people go for very long time without doing anything to stop this, is that every week they tolerate a little more, and it's like it's gradual. Because obviously these things don't happen just out of the, it's not an accident that it's not a broken leg, but it every week we tolerate a little bit more. So I think here I would encourage colleagues to maybe start really paying attention to this, and just if there is a way to measure this, to make sure that, you know, if you see it in 1 or 2 months, you'll realize that, okay, 2 months ago I could sleep well. I maybe couldn't concentrate, but I could sleep well. So if you're noticing this gradual worsening, just really make sure you seek the necessary medical help, or whoever is going to be helpful, because the earlier the better, always.
Yes, absolutely. I love that part about monitoring. The way that I do it is always I check the feelings of what
Yeah.
feelings recurrent, right? And if,
Right.
for instance, for me, the indicator is that if I'm angry most of the time, or if I'm sad.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
these are the indicators that means that I'm tolerating, that I am not saying things where I wanted to say or how I wanted to say,
Yeah.
right? Where I was withholding, and where maybe I wasn't
Mhm.
really being myself, or where I didn't draw the line that I wanted to. So that's why these are for me always the two like feelings that I feel. And then also what I love, the other indicator for myself is that if I haven't processed those emotions, I always feel like constrained on walking through every day having some kind of noise somewhere. Like it will
Yeah.
feel
Mhm.
like restless, maybe is the other way of describing it, right? It will feel like restless, and I know that whenever I'm restless and I continue pushing myself through, then I will just keep adding more emotions, and
Yeah.
my restlessness goes into the anxiety and other
Yeah.
feelings. And that's when I don't like how I'm doing, what I'm doing, and then I get irritated the whole time, like with myself and with others. So these are the like the next level ways that I notice how I show up. So that's why for you it could be other emotions, but you can definitely like check with yourself what are the oftentimes the emotions that you feel or notice, and then if it keeps happening then you may check why it's happening, right? Why are you feeling that? You usually know why that is the case, like you don't need to be expert to know that. And then you can ask yourself what you want to do to change it next time. Is there a way you can change it? If not, how else are you going to deal with that, right? So that's why. And maybe the other visual that I can give is that whenever I have processed the emotions, I feel like all of everything within is flowing smoothly,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? Like calm and
Mhm.
peaceful and grounded in some ways, and everything is flowing within. I always think of it like as if my energy is circulating the way it's
Mhm.
supposed to, right? And you can decide, like check for yourself how that feels like the opposites, right? Of when you are totally feeling healthy and the way that you normally feel, and then when you are like off that track, and then how
Mhm.
you can
Mhm.
bring yourself back to where you want to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have said a lot.
Yes.
Yes,
I think
so
we
yeah,
could explore so much more about the subjects, but maybe we'll make it the subject of another session. I feel that there's quite a lot
yes.
in here.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. And also, I think we could explore more of what pain feels like for you, what suffering, right?
Mhm.
So, these are the things that you can also explore on your own to check with yourself. What are the indicators of that? Is it just a frustration that continues, or it's more than a frustration? What's how that's happening, and when you
Mhm.
start suffering and when you don't, how you can take care of yourself in those moments. So basically, I think the message we want to send you is that have your own internal compass or
Yes.
thermometer or whatever the
Mhm.
device that you use, and then you can check with yourself, is
Yeah.
it going to the right direction that you want it to go, or you are off and you want to do something about it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for listening, watching us, and thank you, Vicky, for being
Thank you,
here
Asel.
again.
Thank you, Asel,
And
and great to have everyone. And we're looking forward to seeing you next week.
exactly, so we'll see you next Thursday. Stay well and see you very soon. Bye.
See you. Bye.